Hello, 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 and welcome to the Jenna Banks Show. I'm your host, Jenna Banks, and I am all about helping you live life to your fullest potential. So today's show is for you. If you're either currently suffering from a recent breakup, or maybe you broke up with somebody or they broke up with you in the past, and maybe it was the distant past, but you still find yourself either hanging on to it or not able to move on from it, or maybe holding out hope that maybe you guys will get back together in the future, or maybe you are currently single and have been single for a while and are looking to form new relationship patterns. Maybe your relationships in the past haven't been the healthiest, and maybe you didn't know it during the time, but after the relationship ended, you realized they weren't the healthiest of relationships, and would like to understand how you can attract healthier relationships in the future. Then today's show is for you. Today's guest is Charlotte Murawski. Charlotte is a fully accredited IAPCNM coach specializing in breakups and relationships. Her mission is to give women the tools that they need in order to get over past relationships, to destroy unhealthy relationship patterns, to know their worth, and to transform their future relationships. Well, Charlotte, it is so nice to have you on today. Thank you for coming onto the show. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm so excited to be here, Jenna. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So you are a breakup coach.
Yep, I am, yeah.
Why did you decide to specialize in being a breakup coach?
I think basically it just comes from my own breakup story, and that's actually how I got into coaching in the first place. And within the coaching community that I'm part of, where I've trained and got all my accreditation through, there's obviously there's thousands of us in this community that I'm associated with, and we've all got different niches. So I got into that through my own breakup. So my marriage broke up last year, and
Sorry.
at that moment, yeah, it's tough, but actually it's been one of my biggest breakthroughs in my life. So in some ways, although it's hard, there are lots of reasons for me to be thankful for it, because if it hadn't have happened, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't be where I know I'm going to. So in lots of ways, it's been a real positive for me, although at the time, obviously, it was difficult and not easy. Didn't want to be somebody that was going through a break up and having a breakdown at the same time. I didn't want one of those people that was angry.
Did you feel that you were feeling that though? Like, did you feel like you might be on the verge of a breakdown, or that you were feeling anger and all the horrible things that we go through when we go through a breakup?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of, anger, like, why is this happening to me? Obviously there was, but we know what's going on in the world at the time as well, that restricted travel.
Right.
So that was really tough. So it's all these things of, why is this happening to me? It's not fair. Feeling anger, feeling resentful towards my ex and all those other things. Feeling frustrated at people that are, giving their unsolicited advice about what you should or shouldn't do. Perhaps bad mouthing my ex. All these different things that people, friends do. They're going to be supportive and show you that they're, like, in your camp, on your team. But at the same time, I was identifying these things, weren't helping for me. And I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be this person that was bitter and angry and just resentful of everything. So I really started to dig deep and was like, I need to make some big changes in my life. And that's where I came across coaching. And through that, I started to really change my perspectives. And it was just so powerful because very, very quickly, I felt a lot better about things. And just from a few subtle perspective shifts, I noticed a really big improvement. So the biggest one for me was going from this real victim mentality of, why is this happening to me, to how is this happening for me? And when you start to question that, it's so incredibly powerful. It's not easy because you think, well, how can there be any positive that could come out of a breakup or a difficult situation in your life? But actually, through any difficult situation, if you can ask yourself, how could this be happening for me? What lessons can I learn, or what opportunities could this bring to me? it can really help, and it can really help that grieving process because, obviously, a breakup, you are grieving a loss of things. You're grieving a loss of happy memories, a loss of a person, you're grieving a loss of a potential future that you had been picturing and imagining
Right.
you were going to be having.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of loss that you're grieving for. So if you can just start to think, okay, how could this be happening for me?
Yeah.
And just changing how you're thinking about things, it's so powerful. So
Mm-hmm.
I started to do all these things and notice a real positive impact on me. And I was just like, why didn't I know about this before?
Right.
Why have I got to my mid-30s and I've never known about this?
Right.
I've struggled previously before my marriage for breakups. I know friends and colleagues and
Mm-hmm.
acquaintances who have really struggled as well, sometimes for years as a result of a traumatic breakup.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just, looking back, I was like, if only
Mm-hmm.
they'd had these tools and this knowledge,
So
it might
here's
have
what
really
I say,
helped
not
them.
only if only, but like if only we knew that this existed as an option, right?
Yeah,
Relationship coaching is such a unique field of specialization that is entirely different than therapy because I
yeah,
had a breakup once where I went to seek a therapist help, even though I was the one who broke up. I wanted to understand because it was a bad breakup. And I thought, how did I get myself in a situation with this person? Like, I want to figure that out. And so the therapy was okay. I don't feel like I
hmm,
left it feeling like I had all the answers. I didn't feel like I wasn't going to prevent that from happening again. And then
yeah,
I got into another relationship, and this breakup was even more difficult to deal with because in that relationship, I was very much in love. And while I did decide to be the breaker upper,
hmm,
that didn't help the situation because I still had a huge hole in my heart. And I knew this person wasn't healthy for me. So I found myself once again in another toxic relationship
yeah,
pattern without the answers to why. But I knew I was just suffering. But I knew I couldn't get in it and back into the situation, even though my mind was playing tricks on me, trying to make me think that I could make all the toxicity okay. If
hmm,
only I did this, if only I accepted that and just got over whatever my issues were with that situation. But then I knew there was something more. I knew there was something better, but I didn't know what it was. So I
yeah,
went online searching, and I happened upon a blog post by a breakup coach, and that led me to eventually get relationship coaching. I didn't even know relationship coaching existed. I would have gone to that in the very first place if I knew that was an option. So that helped me, the tools that you guys have as
yeah,
relationship coaches, or in your case, breakup coach, are specific to relationships. And it's very unlike going to a therapist. So maybe you can help shed a little bit of light as to what the differences are and how they pertain to relationships and healing from breakups specifically.
yeah. I mean, I haven't personally, experienced therapy myself, but I have a lot of clients that come to me who have experienced therapy, and very similarly, they sort of said, obviously, it works for some people, but for some, they sort of say, actually, I find it didn't work for me. A lot of it was, you know, questions. It was questions about the past, and all I
Mm-hmm.
got from it was, the acknowledgement of like, oh, I can see how that made you feel, or you felt
Mm-hmm.
sad, or a lot of the focus was on the other person. So I get clients coming to me who have come from, toxic relationships, and it's quite traumatic for them when they start to realize the relationship that I thought was amazing and healthy and had this potential for this future. Perhaps they were engaged to that person, or they had visions of, getting married and having this real future with them.
Yeah.
They suddenly had these realizations that actually that relationship wasn't healthy after all. And this person that I thought loved me did these things to me. And even if they've been the one that have left it, it's still traumatic for them. And, through the therapy, a lot of it's focused on that person.
Mm-hmm.
So they've come to me with all these answers about that person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this person was a narcissist and they got it from this, and this person's their enabler, and all these other things. And I'll
Yeah.
ask them, but what did you learn about yourself?
Oh, good. That's good. Yes.
Nothing. I
Right.
know everything about my ex, why they're the way they are, all these other things, but they haven't learned anything about themselves. It's just focused on their ex and what happened in the situation and identifying it. But I think, we know from all different situations that no two narcissists are going to be the same. So it doesn't necessarily stop you from getting into a relationship with a new one. Because yes, you might know about your ex and why they are the way they are, but it's like if you think of any mental health condition, people are, if it's depression, people are depressed for different reasons.
Right.
You can't know why one person is depressed and then know how anyone else is going to be. You can't compare that. It's completely different. So knowing about why one person behaved the way they were isn't going to stop you from getting into a relationship with somebody else.
So what is it that you find gets us into these patterns? Because that's what it is, right? Like, do you find that most of your clients are in a pattern? They're like attracting the same type of toxic relationships or same type of partners?
Yeah, definitely. So with my coaching, I'm also an NLP master practitioner.
Oh.
So that's really about neuro-linguistic programming, and it's absolutely amazing to pair it with the coaching. So theoretically, what it does is it essentially looks at, we can't control the world around us, but we can control how we perceive it and our thoughts, and we can learn to control what happens in our mind. We don't believe we can, actually we can. So through that, we can identify patterns that we are running in our lives. We can start to understand why we do the things that we do,
So
and how we can change it.
Would you say then that we ourselves are part of the problem or creating our problems?
And that's a really hard realization to have, because it can sound like, I've caused this. We haven't caused anything, but we are allowing certain things into our lives because of the patterns that we are running subconsciously. And often we're not aware of it. And it's absolutely nothing to be, ashamed about or to, hate on yourself about at all, because, once you have that realization, it is beautiful because you can change it. So absolutely no way is it about, shaming yourself or feeling guilty about the fact that you've had these relationships. It's about creating this awareness and understanding, like, now I've got that awareness, I can actually change it, and I can change these patterns. It's a bit like having a garden full of grass and you've got this one path down there. You can let that grow and you can get your lawnmower out and you can create a brand new path that's completely different. And that's what the coaching and NLP does. And it's so powerful. And you can start to actually identify where these patterns have come from. And that's the beauty of, NLP, because sometimes through coaching, some people do realize, because sometimes, things from your past can be so significant, you're very aware of it. But sometimes we've buried things into our subconscious. And when we use NLP with the coaching, it pulls it out the subconscious, and people can have these memories come up that they were not even aware of from their childhood. And often, we can sort of say, but I didn't have a traumatic childhood. You don't need to have done. It can literally be something that happened in a moment. A significant adult in your life said something so innocently to you, but with your childhood brain, you interpret it in a very different way, and you took a lot of meaning from that, and you could certain beliefs about that. Or you witnessed an event, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a traumatic event. It can literally just be how somebody dealt with, an event, and it can create these, patterns. For me personally, I identified where I've allowed certain behaviours that now, with the knowledge I have, I would never accept again. But previously, I have. And I often thought, like, why was I accepting those behaviours?
Yeah.
And I had some of these NLP techniques done on me, where I went back to my past, into my subconscious, and I had no idea where it had come from. But I pulled up this memory from my childhood, and it was, a very innocent memory. Like, so my mum was, caring for my terminal dad with 3 young children, and there was this one particular memory that came up for me with these techniques of, she was cooking dinner. He called her up because he was really ill and she had to go tend to him, and she'd burnt the dinner, and my granddad had seen it, and for all the things that he was struggling with at the time, he knew his son was going to pass away. It was really hard for him, but his behaviour wasn't particularly pleasant. And I remember him having a bit of a go at my mum and being quite disrespectful towards her. Obviously with my adult brain now, I can see that situation is that she let it go because she didn't want to cause a scene. She didn't want to create an argument. But with my childhood brain on, I took that situation, witnessing it, to mean, well, she accepts that behaviour. Because there was a reason, because my granddad was struggling with his own pain, it was okay for him to be disrespectful towards her. So I've identified that subconsciously I was running that pattern. So in relationships, if someone's disrespectful towards you in terms of, their actions or their words, but if you can justify it because, oh, but they had this issue in their childhood or they're struggling with this at the moment, it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating when you have that realization. You're like, wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible. And without doing the coaching or NLP, I never would have connected those two dots. It's such an innocent memory. It wasn't particularly traumatic. It was just, my granddad being a bit unpleasant towards my mum. He wasn't even shouting the memory. He was just being a bit rude, like, how can I eat this? It's disgusting. I'm going to go out. And my mum being a little bit upset by it. So it wasn't like a traumatic argument or anything.
Yeah.
But as children, we've got very limited experience on this planet, and we take a lot of meaning from these situations, and we create these beliefs. What we see, what we witness as children from significant adults tells us this is what a relationship looks like. This is what a normal relationship is. This is how you should behave.
Yep.
These are the behaviors you should accept. This is what you're worthy of. All of these things, and it's so powerful. And I feel that's what you get from coaching and through NLP that you don't get from, therapy, because I think it's really important to identify this relationship wasn't healthy, but you don't need to go into the ins and outs of what created that person. Why was that person like that towards you?
Truly. You don't. And I truly feel like that's what therapy did for me. It helped me understand person. It helped me understand how I was in that relationship. And if I wanted to stay in it, they probably could have helped me figure out how to navigate that. But it never would have gotten to the root of why I am in these patterns, if it's healthy for me or not healthy for me, and helping me address the issues of what attracted that in the first place. So, and I don't think, and I'm not knocking on therapy. I think therapy is amazing for certain things, but when it comes to relationships, I feel like coaches who have this NLP training and all the other training that you have, when it comes to us identifying these patterns of the past, these programs, this conditioning that happened to us when we were children, and thus formed these limiting beliefs or just subconscious beliefs about ourselves, and what relationships look like, whether healthy or not. And I like that you pointed out, just something not even traumatic, because I had traumatic events that certainly shaped my beliefs about relationships. But in your case, you're right. It wasn't necessarily this major traumatic event.
Right.
However, from what I've researched and read, we form our, 90%, 95%, a huge amount of our belief system from the ages of 0 to 7. Is that it was something that you believe as well? Is it?
Yeah, definitely. And, a lot of our limiting beliefs can really come from about, 5 to 9, 10, 11. So often we do these techniques, I'll ask my clients, how old are you in this memory? And usually 90% of the time they are between the age of about 5 and 10.
Wow.
When they come up with. And I was about 7 years old in, my memory at the time. And obviously I sort of have some realizations from my dad passing away that was a traumatic bit for me. But there's other beliefs that have been created from memories that weren't traumatic. Children are sponges. We're constantly soaking in everything. This is how I behave in this world. This is what this world means. And as adults, we innocently say things all the time, to children, and they can interpret. We don't know how they're interpreting things always. So it's so powerful to go back, and through it, we can actually change those beliefs.
Yeah.
So we can work, say, okay, now you're an adult and you're looking at this memory. What meaning do you want to give it? What do you want to believe about it? What can you learn from it? So through that, they can actually change it, and they can, send those messages down to their childhood self and change their whole past. Like, now you've made this decision instead that it wasn't actually okay to accept this behavior. How's that changed things for you? How's that changed your relationships that you've had? How's it going to change your future relationships? And it is so powerful.
So powerful.
one of the things I really work on my clients is the thoughts they have. So I talked about, you know, when you're really focusing, because lots of them will have things like, I'm trying to work out this about my ex and why he did this.
Hmm.
I need closure, all these things. And I'll say to them, look, the problem is, even if your ex tells you something, you will never know how true that is. People can say anything they want,
So
and you
true.
don't know if it's the truth or not. So you have
Yeah.
to create your own closure.
Yeah.
And all the while, you're thinking about, why did he do this? Why did he leave? Why did he do it in that way? Your thoughts are creating how you feel. So when
Mm.
you're thinking these things, how are you feeling? I'm feeling angry.
Yeah.
I'm feeling sad, depressed. I'm feeling like my world has ended. Absolutely. And the longer that you focus on those things, you continue to feel that way. And when you feel that way, how do you behave?
Hmm.
Well, I don't really want to make any effort with myself. I want to
Hmm.
literally just lie in bed all day. I struggle to do basic things in the day. I struggle to get to work. I struggle to, do anything. And it's like, so what results is that creating in your life? Not a lot, It's not the positive
It's
things.
not
It becomes this
helpful.
vicious cycle. No, a
Yeah.
vicious cycle that goes round and round of negativity and not creating those useful things. But as soon as we recognize our thoughts are at the center of everything and we change them, well, then suddenly that changes how we feel, and
Yeah.
then that changes how we behave, and then that changes the results we're creating in our life.
Mm. So
So
powerful,
powerful.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so let's say somebody's in the middle of a breakup. Let's say
Yeah.
right now they've got that hole in their heart. Um, would you say, so for what I discovered and from what I researched when I was in that position, it felt like almost like, not that I've been addicted to heroin or anything like that, but from
Yeah.
what I've read, it can feel like a similar withdrawal, right? You're withdrawing from, especially if you're in an unhealthy relationship pattern, especially if you have what is called trauma bonding, which I didn't even know
Yeah.
anything about before. But we can, some of us with trauma, and then some codependent tendencies can bond to partners a certain way, and these trauma bonds. And then when you break up from that, it's like an addiction and a
Yeah.
withdrawal from that drug. So maybe you were getting dopamine release while in that relationship. A love drug, if you will, which dopamine is kind of it's a similar dopamine is the same type of chemical that's released in our brain, I think, when we do drugs, right? Like heroin or
Yeah.
something like that. So when you withdraw from that love drug, it's like you're going through just like a drug withdrawal, and it can
Yeah.
feel the same, right? You've got this hole in your heart and you just want that drug back because even if you know it's bad for you, your mind starts to play tricks on you, just like a drug
Yeah.
addict. Well, yeah, I know it's bad for me, but I need this fix. I'm hurting. I don't know what else to do. And so your mind starts to play the tricks and say, well, maybe I can put up with this. Maybe I can bend and morph and accept this, and I will be the one to change, and yada, yada. And it doesn't help because the relationship was toxic and it was a toxic pattern. But how would you advise somebody who might be in that situation right now with this hole in their heart? They want to, they really want to go back, even though they know it's
Yeah.
bad for them. What would how would you advise somebody in that position?
Yeah. So first, even just touching on that, with the toxic relationships and sometimes like trauma and codependency. Actually, as human beings, with even a healthy relationship that ends, we're conditioned as people to be part of a partnership. Think back to caveman times. We needed to belong to a pact. So actually, just as a human being, whenever any relationship ends, no matter whether it was a positive one, a healthy one, unhealthy, it's actually quite traumatic for us because our instinct is, that flight or fight of like, I'm losing my connection, my partnership here. I'm on my own. I'm being kicked out of my pact. So just with that, with any relationship, it's actually quite traumatic and it's hard. And so when someone comes to me in that sort of situation where they're really, struggling, and especially, I might be hearing from them, okay, this doesn't sound like it was a healthy relationship. But with the coach, it's about someone realizing it. Because it's like if you tell someone, like your friends might say to you, what are you doing with this person? This isn't healthy. Like, how are you accepting this behavior? And you don't want to hear those things. You have to, create those realizations, yourself. And that's, the tricky part. It's getting people to come to the realization themselves, actually, this wasn't healthy and it's not good for me. Because they will have those things of, I miss them. So I'll get really conflicting messages from somebody where on the one hand, they'll say, I'm really angry at this person. They did all these things to me.
Yeah.
And it was a really traumatic breakup. I can't believe they behaved in this way. And then the next message, but I really miss them. I'm so in love with them. So then I'll start trying to separate out those thoughts and those feelings for them. So I'll say, are you missing the person, or are you missing what the relationship gave you?
Yeah.
And that's really powerful, because actually often it's not the person, because we're angry at the person. We're not happy with the person. We miss the relationship. We miss that companionship. We miss coming home to somebody. We miss having somebody to do things with at the weekend or in the evening. We miss having that person to text or call in a day when we need somebody. We miss those things. We miss the intimacy of being with somebody. So when I break it down with them, they start saying, actually, I think I miss the relationship and not the person. So it just helps to start detaching the person from that pain, and then looking at, can you get those things from anyone else in your life? It doesn't mean you're jumping straight into a relationship. So, have you got a connection with, friends, family members? Could you, have you got somebody during the day that if you need to reach out to them, that you could drop them a text or a call? Have you got a few friends who could be that person for you, or family members? Have you got people that you could, see in the evenings, at the weekends, so you don't create this lonely space of, I miss this person, when actually you miss having that person there as part of your life, because that's the biggest thing. It's adapting to this new life that you've got, and it's this whole sense of loss. I've lost this, I've lost this, I've lost it. So we assume we're missing the person, and it can take time to adjust our thoughts and our feelings on that,
So let's say after somebody has gone through that process of reaching out to friends, because I've been there, done that, and that's what I did in that last breakup, that where I knew I needed to. By the way, any contact with him would reopen the wounds. And he would reach out, and sometimes if you're quite enmeshed and you've got, let's say you're living together, you've moved apart, there's a lot of details you still have to stay in touch about, which makes it difficult, because your mind really wants to play tricks on you and make you translate some things they're saying into false hope and all this other stuff. So that's difficult. But once you no longer have to have the contact, would you advise keeping, like, how do you feel about people staying friends or in communication with the ex when you're hurting really badly over the breakup? Like, what would you say about that?
Yes, this is a really important one, and I sort of do a lot of content around, when you can't go no contact, because perhaps there are kids involved, and you've got to long term, rest of your life, you are going to have some element of contact, or you might have, shared assets that you need to deal with. You might be married and you've got to go for a divorce. So sometimes no contact is not an option.
But if it is, would you advise it? If it is,
definitely, because some people, we always think, I want to be friends with this person, because initially it's hard to separate that.
And sometimes you still have love for them. You think, I can love you as a person and keep you in my, I will always want, I hear that all the time. Well, I love this person. I want to keep you as, I actually thought that about my ex. I thought, I love this person so much, I can still stay friends with them. But the problem was with that is, because I was hurting from the breakup so much, even though I was the one to break it off, I would find that every time we were getting in contact, it would throw my world into a tailspin. All the progress I had made and starting to feel better, it would throw me back into being depressed. My mood would go downward instead of up. And I was like, this isn't serving me. And when I just would say, let me just play with this for a second, block on the phone, block on the email, but I'd feel instantly good. And at some point I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna, you know what, let me temporarily do this. Let me just keep going for a few more days. And then he'd have to get in contact for something, and it would throw me into a tailspin again. I go, you know what? I'm going to just keep this as a permanent thing because that's what makes me feel better.
Yeah.
That friend thing isn't going to work. So, if you're fine with it, I think, and you feel okay, I mean, what would you say if you feel all right with the friendship and it doesn't make you feel bad, is it okay to stay friends with an ex?
I think initially, even if you're on really good terms and you're doing like a really nice uncoupling process, I think you still need to create that space for yourselves because you've both got to navigate this new life for you. And maintaining that close level of contact is not easy. So you need to kind of have that agreement, even if you feel like you are going to be friends, because actually maybe it was a really healthy relationship. Maybe you've fallen more into a friendship pattern and you've drifted apart. And actually, there was nothing bad about your breakup. It was just a natural kind of ending, and you had this agreement, and you feel really strongly that actually, we could be friends. And lots of people are, like, it is possible, but you still need that initial period of actually, let's have minimal contact because we need to find who we are as people on our own. And I always ask the question, if you really want to be friends with someone, identify what do you look for in a friendship? What qualities do you want? Does this person actually match those qualities? Because sometimes you want to be friends with people that aren't good for us. Would you actually choose this person day to day to be your friend if you hadn't have been in a relationship with them? And 9 times out of 10, people say, no, actually, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
They're
that's what
not
happened to
good for
me. That's what happened to me. I said, let's take a little space because this isn't working for me. I need space. I love you as a person, but and that space ended up turning into a lot more space and a lot more space. And as I had more space, I realized I wouldn't even have been friends with this person had we not been dating.
Yeah.
And after realizing they didn't even meet my relationship values at all, because I didn't even know what those were. And when I did my own assessment and figured out, oh goodness, like, okay, here's my top 5 relationship values. And they're like a 1 to 3 out of a 1 to 10. They meet them 1 to 3. They're not even meeting my relationship values, certainly not friendship values. So having that space, I think, is important to allow you to really evaluate, and you can, but it really helps. It helps me a lot to do it temporary, like as a temporary thing at first, because you can say, well, you know what, I just need a little space. But if that space feels real good and it gives you time to reevaluate, then maybe, maybe you need permanent space.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, if there's a reason you do need to have contact, it's setting boundaries around that contact. So, when we need to contact each other, these are the things we're going to discuss. For instance, you've got kids involved, we will discuss the children, but we're not going to discuss X, Y, and Z. We're not going to get into the how are yous and how's your day going, because that steps back into that relationship, and that's when the pain comes up again.
Yeah.
If you've got a house together and you need to divide those assets, it's like when we get in contact, we will talk about that and the practical things that we need to do. But we're not going to start talking about our weekends or how are you doing, or because it blurs those lines. So it's really keeping those boundaries and actually writing yourself out. This is how it's going to look, and I need to stick to that. And if he starts asking those questions, I need to politely decline them, and I also need to prevent myself from asking him, because of course there's going to be curiosity there. Lots of my clients will sort of say, but I want to know if they regret, leaving me, or, they're so happy without me. And I say, but how do you know that?
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you know that? What evidence do you have? Well, they're doing this. They've gone on holiday recently. Okay, but how do you know they're happy? Do you know people have gone on holiday and been miserable? Well, yeah, I do. So just because people are doing certain things, you don't actually know how they're feeling. Unless you're inside their head, you've got no idea. As if you were posting something on social media, trying to make people feel, believe that you're having a whale of a time, and actually you're really not. Yeah, I have. Exactly. So even if they're posting a happy post, it doesn't mean they're actually happy. And all these things are going on in your head. You don't know that. And I think regret can look different. It can be very different to people. You might regret leaving a relationship, or you might just regret the way you left that relationship. You might not. You might think actually it was the right thing to leave that person, but I regret how I did it. And when you regret something, how many times do you go back to that person and you tell them, I regret what I did? Most people don't.
Right.
They don't do it. It's quite a scary thing to say to someone, "Do you know what? Like, I need to apologize. I really regret
Yeah.
what I did in that situation." And 9 times out of 10 people don't. As I say, even if they do regret something, you're probably never going to know. So
Mhm.
the more you obsess over those things, again, you're focusing on him and you're not
Them.
focusing on yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I would like to bring that into the equation, focusing on yourself after a breakup. What is the work that you would recommend somebody do, after, yes, you go through the healing, you're working on that. Definitely, I would advise seeing a relationship coach.
Yeah.
Do it 1, 2, 3, 4 times, whatever it takes for you to feel like you've got your answers, so that you understand what caused you to get into those patterns in the first place, because I can guarantee you're going to be surprised at how much
Yeah.
you're actually contributing to the situation unbeknownst to you. And it might be,
Yeah.
like Charlotte was saying, these subconscious patterns and thoughts that run through our minds, the way we translate and filter events that are happening, or the reasons we allow things to happen that we're not even realizing we're allowing to
Yeah.
happen. Those types of things are still our responsibility. And once you find out that you're actually causing them, or that you've got your part to play in the toxicity, it's actually very empowering, because you then
Absolutely.
realize that you have the power to change those things in your life, and make better choices for yourself in the future, and
Yeah.
attract healthier relationships. But it's awareness is really the key. And so once you've gotten some help to get you through understanding, oh my gosh, I've got these patterns. Oh my gosh, I had this trauma or these triggers or whatever. Then the next step is what? Like, would you recommend? For me, I had to focus on making myself happy,
Yes.
period. Like, outside of a relationship, I found it very important for me to just focus on generating my own happiness and being whole, through self-love,
Yeah.
and practicing self-love, and learning to build a relationship with myself, and nurture that, number one,
Yeah.
and not need anybody else, really. And when I got to that point, it was so powerful for me, because then I had naturally attracted somebody into my life that was completely the opposite of what I had been attracting before. And
Yeah.
somebody that, where I'm like, look, I have my self-love practice. I'm never going to rely on you to make me happy. I need to rely on myself for my happiness. And I want to, I just know that my relationship with myself is my most important relationship. So I'm going
Yeah.
to continue to spend time nurturing that, spending time with my friends and never losing that, not putting all my love eggs in one basket. I will never do that again.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was really important, to focus on my relationship with myself for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Touched on so many important things there. But yeah, when I work with my clients, it's not just about that healing process and understanding why they've been in certain relationships. Normally I work with someone for 3 months and, we
Mm.
cover those things. So initially it's getting over that breakup and changing our thoughts, our perspectives over it. It's then working out like why we've been in certain relationships,
Mhm.
to change those patterns. And then it's very much about our future and looking at those future relationships. And with a lot of it, it's those realizations about ourselves, because what
Yeah.
we do so much in life is we think other people provide us with happiness.
Yeah.
I'm happy when I'm in a relationship. I'm happy when I have these things. But ultimately, we are the only ones that can control our happiness. We
Yes.
have zero control over anybody else apart from ourselves.
And how can, I had this huge epiphany that is like, how can somebody be responsible for making me happy? Because I was constantly getting resentful when
Yeah,
my partner wasn't making me happy, because I've been pouring so much of myself into them. It's like, well, why aren't you giving me enough back to fill my love tank? It's your
yeah,
responsibility. But actually, that's misdirected thinking, because when
yeah,
I realized that That's a ridiculous burden to put on anyone. And I certainly don't want to be responsible for anybody else's happiness. And then, well, what can I do to make myself happy in this relationship? And I was able to then flip that script. Once you flip the script in your mind and you realize I have to make myself happy, and no one can make me as happy as I can anyway.
Yeah.
When you start making yourself happy, you realize, wait, he could never do that for me. Like he can't, it's little things that make me happy. My music, reading, taking walks in the sun, those little things that can make you happy on a daily basis, they could never do for you. But you have to make sure you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when we're children, again, we listen to all the fairy tales and the stories, about all live happy ever after. And we need our Prince Charming, because when we get our Prince Charming, we get these things.
Everything will be happy. When you get married, you'll be happy. Yes.
So we wait for that to happen, for us to have certain things in our lives. And, I use an analogy with lots of my clients about, like a chocolate cake. And I say, what we do is we make our partner our chocolate cake. They are our everything.
Everything
in our life is in that chocolate cake. And when that relationship goes, that chocolate cake is completely gone. And we're like, I've lost this, I've lost that, I've lost the opportunity to get married, to have children, to, my house, I've lost that, I've lost my dogs, I've lost this, I've lost my pets, I've lost, all coming through. So what we need to do is we need to create that chocolate cake for ourselves. Everything we want in life, we can have. So we build up those chocolate cake layers ourselves. If you're going to own your own house, you can do it. There's always a way. If you set that goal, you can find a way to do it. If you want to travel, you don't need that partner to do that. If you want to achieve certain things in your career, you can go for that. If you want, whatever it might be in your life that you want to create, you can do that.
What was really neat is, Charlotte, I was on vacation in Aruba not too long ago, and I went into a fine jewelry store, and I was looking at some stuff, and I was like, gosh, I really love that ring. It's so beautiful. And we tend to, just old conditioning and programming popped up like, well, a man should buy that for me. That's a gift someone would give to you. It'd be nice if somebody, but I was like, it would be nice if I bought that for myself.
Yeah.
And you know what I did? I bought that for myself.
Yes.
And it was the best piece of jewelry I've ever bought for myself. And you know how damn good it felt? It felt so good. And it meant so much more to me that I did that for myself, that I treated myself that way, because I felt like I deserve it. Of course, we do deserve our love and affection like that. And then it made me realize, like, why wait for somebody else to come along and do anything for you? Take you on a nice vacation, whatever. You can plan those things yourself and do them yourself.
Nice dinner. Take yourself
nice
a nice
dinner. Exactly.
The movies. Go on your own if you don't have anyone else.
Or put something together and invite a friend or two. But you can do all those things for yourself, and those things no one can take away from you. You buy things for yourself. You're not going to ever look at it and say, well, so-and-so bought that for me. It's got too much whatever attached to it, emotion, or now negative energy because we're no longer together, or reminds me of him. If you aspire to be able to do those things for yourself, no one can take that away from you. It's the most unconditional form of love, when you can spoil yourself and love yourself. So it actually, I've come to find, is the best love that there is your own love for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I do a lot with the clients I work with. I talk about, creating your own cake, and then with a future partner, they're just, the cake topper on the top.
Yeah.
It looks great. You love the cake topper. It really adds to the cake. It makes it a little bit extra special. You really enjoy it. But if that cake topper comes away for whatever reason, you decide actually you no longer want it on your cake, it's fine. It's okay. Because you still have the cake. If they decide that they don't want to be on your cake anymore, that's okay, because you still have this cake, you still have this incredible life. You've got all the things in your life that you want. And of course, it might be sad if you lose that great cake topper off your cake, because it really added to it, and you enjoyed it being on your cake. But it's not the end of the world, because you still got that chocolate cake. Whereas what we were doing previously is we were losing everything, the chocolate cake, and we couldn't eat it afterwards. It's gone.
So you bring up something very important. In the past, I feel like we had, like you mentioned, movies, Disney movies, whatever. I feel like pop culture has programmed us, conditioned us to have not only a codependent relationship kind of conditioning and expectation, but also that forever, if you get into a relationship or a marriage or whatever, that the ideal should be a forever relationship. And so if anything, then you try, and it's almost like at some point, like you might grow apart or go in different directions, right? We learn and we grow, and sometimes we grow apart. But then we try to force this square peg into a round hole because we're supposed to be together forever. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, is that a realistic expectation?
Of course, some people are together forever. There are marriages out there and people do, but I think, to say that every relationship is going to be forever, I think is quite, dangerous for people, because I get clients coming to this real mentality of, I failed. I failed at this relationship. I failed at this marriage because it had all these expectations, attached to it. So again, it's changing those thoughts. Okay, can you think of other things in your life that have ended that you wouldn't call a failure? So for instance, has a job ever ended that wasn't a failure? Well, yeah, because I got a promotion, or I changed careers, or I went to work for a new company. And was it a great outcome? Yeah, because I got more money, or I got more things out of it. I got better, experiences, better challenges in that role. So that first job ended, but you're not saying it's a failure.
Right.
And there's lots of things, even sometimes we have a friendship that ends, but we don't often say, I failed at that friendship. We won't be sad about it ending, but sometimes we do drift apart from friends. We don't have that same kind of mentality and those thoughts about, I failed that friendship, it failed. But when it comes to a relationship, I failed. My marriage failed. So many negative connotations around it, but actually sometimes a relationship, I believe, is only meant to be for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
It could be 6 months, a year, 10 years, 20 years. Some people, get divorced after 30 years together. And you wouldn't expect it because you think, wow, they've been together such a long period of time.
Make it work. They should force it till the end. Why?
Yeah, but why? And, we have these experiences in our lives for different reasons. And it comes back to, why is this happening for me? What can I learn from it? What experiences can I gain? What lessons? What opportunities could this, create for me? Because maybe you aren't allowing things into your life because you're in this relationship, and in a relationship you're kind of, agreeing to certain things together as a couple, and you might have burning desires there, things you're not even aware of, or you're not even thinking about because it's not a possibility while you're in that relationship because it doesn't suit that relationship.
Right.
And actually, when a relationship, completes, we can start having these, realizations instead, and actually thinking about, like, okay, why is this happening for me? What do I need to change
What do I need
in my
to
life?
learn? Yeah.
What do I need to learn? How do I need to grow? And actually, if our life was perfect, none of us would grow. We would just be stuck the same.
So true, right? We need the hard lessons sometimes to learn and grow. Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, but that's how we grow. We don't grow from being comfortable. If you're comfortable day in, day out, you don't grow, you don't change, you don't adapt.
Yeah, it's in the uncomfortable that we have to rethink things and change and grow. Absolutely. I love how you said when the relationship completes. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Changing it from, like, it failed, because that's the thing, so many different examples, we don't label it as a failure. It ended, it completed, like, my job ended, my job completed, different things, like my house completed. You don't go, oh, I failed that house because you moved out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a perspective change. That's
yeah,
because, Charlotte, I love that. That's really a beautiful way to end this episode, because that's just a place you come from a place of healing and growing, and that is possible for anyone. So, whoever's watching this right now, if you're hurting from a breakup, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but maybe, maybe think about looking at it from a different perspective, and maybe seeking a different type of help, or getting some help from a coach, because I have to tell you, it really was a game changer for me, and not just to heal from one particular breakup, but to actually change your approach altogether to relationships and go into them in a much healthier way and
Yeah.
perspective in the future. It's like, it's a gift worth giving to yourself. I speak from experience. So, and if you want to get in touch with Charlotte, right now she's only working through Instagram. But Charlotte, what is your Instagram handle? We'll be sure to share it with everybody.
Yes, it's Charlotte the Breakup Coach.
I love it. Charlotte, the breakup coach.
But yeah, you're absolutely, right, because often we just think, give it time. Time's a healer. But time's not a healer if you're doing nothing.
Exactly. Use that moment of discomfort, this moment, this time of discomfort to learn and grow and better yourself and create a better life for yourself. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for coming on today. It was really a pleasure to have you.
Oh, I loved it. It's been so great chatting to you and just talking about breakups. Yeah, it's been amazing. I've loved it. So thank you for inviting me on.
My pleasure. I hope you were able to get some really good insights and takeaways from today's episode with Charlotte. If you're currently healing from a breakup or trying to get through a breakup, or you're just looking to move on from toxic relationship patterns that haven't been working for you in the past, first, let me just congratulate you for doing the work to get to this point. So you are well on your way to healing and finding new, better, more healthy relationships for patterns for yourself. So congratulations on taking these first steps. But truly the most important relationship of your life, I hope you realize by now, is your relationship with yourself. Self-love is so important. So if you haven't spent a lot of time working on that relationship with yourself, I would highly encourage you to start today, because truly that is where true unconditional love is found. Your completeness and your wholeness is found from within. And when you can get to that place of completeness and wholeness on your own, like Charlotte said, anybody else just ends up being that topping on your cake that you've already baked and iced for yourself. So I will leave you on that today. But if we aren't already connected on social media, let's connect. I would love to see you there. I'm really active on Instagram, on Facebook, and on TikTok. You will find me at Jenna Banks .0. I'm also quite active on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, Jenna Banks. I'd love to encourage you to visit my website. I've got some freebies for you there, as well as a free download, an intro to my book, which is coming out in February 8th, 2022. It's all about self-love. It's called I Love Me More, and it's a practical guide to helping you learn how to love yourself fully. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the show. I'm all about helping you live life to your fullest potential, and I have so much more to share with you in the future. Thanks again for tuning in today. I hope to see you again. And remember, your love is your power. Until next time.